Gray Zone Warfare is the new PvEVP tactical shooter set in Southeast Asia with the potential to compete with the giants of the extraction, tactical, or even survival shooter space. I had the opportunity to try out the game for a full week in its current early access state. We're playing somewhat of a vertical slice of the game, I'd call it, where streamers and YouTubers alike have the ability to try out missions, PvP, and explore the main areas of the big map. And with the power of UE5, Gray Zone is one of the largest technological jumps in gaming we've seen in a while, with stunning landscapes and one of the most unique game modes, and yet it has some of the weirdest design choices, copy-paste features, and a game progression system so monotonous that the streamers and YouTubers like me who are playing it just decided to walk for an hour across the map instead to see what shooting other players was like. But it is a really refreshing experience. You have no raid timer, you have food and water drain, but you can source supplies from the bandit-controlled villages pretty easily. You can have a mission last 20 minutes, or it can last an hour. You can focus PvP, PvE, or on personal progression, but the freedom of this formula also brings contradicting and frustrating game elements that I called in the first test. It's clearly far from the final product of the game, but now the developers have given early gameplay access to over 100 or so predominantly Escape from Tarkov streamers. Since the last playtest, performance has gone way up, at least on my top-end PC, where we were hitting 70 or 80 FPS with an RTX 4090 before. With the new optimization plus DLSS and NVIDIA frame generation, you can get up to 160, 180 pretty regularly now. In some towns, though, it still got chunky, and most of this footage I was trying out different quality configurations, so ignore the FPS up there. The performance still needs work, but is much better, especially when using something like the Elcan Spectre scopes. The scopes got much better, an extremely clear image, and it felt really nice toggling between 1 and 4x. Shooting guns felt great in my opinion. Some guns like the Mosin with PU scope were literally off zero, so listen.
Yeah.
I didn't miss this shot. The gun was off, okay? This is what happens when you buy your Mosin scope from NC Star. Only airsofters will get that joke. Movement still feels off. You get stuck on tiny objects like little logs or rocks that are in real life, you would just, walk over them. Jumping feels like I'm back in Big Team Battle Halo 3. If the devs want the game to play like that, then feel free, be my guest. I'm gonna go play Roblox Phantom Forces now. Firstly, one of the more iconic features of the game is the MH6 Little Bird, the primary method you transport yourself and your buddies around the map. As the server is a 24/7 no loading screen environment, you either walk 6 miles to the objective from your base, or you fly. The problem is, this is not a flyable Little Bird like in Arma. You can't take the controls. You get on and you are on an invisible roller coaster from your base to whatever LZ you chose. You can't tell the pilot to wave off, change directions, or maybe tell him that your buddy has spotted 4 guys camping the LZ. The one you're gonna land at in the heli that you can't shoot out of or jump out of. Even if the enemy is standing literally on your LZ, your pilot will land you there 2 feet from them. What a trooper. There's 3 LZs in each of the major towns, and there's 2 LZs per point of interest, meaning that if you know that there's player activity at a POI, there's a 50% chance that if you camp an LZ, you will have some poor soul come in to land at that spot with literally nothing they can do to stop you. I find it odd, as a person that's played like Ghost Recon and DayZ and all that stuff, that this is the only mode of transportation after your own 2 feetsies. To have a Little Bird that you can call in, but not even a dirt bike for ground transport. I feel like the Little Bird squeezes the giant map down to a tiny size, because whenever I'm flying to an AO, I'm skipping over huge areas of terrain with the monotonous flights that are cool the first few times. Trust me, it feels cool to get picked up off a Little Bird, especially if you don't play games like Arma or larger scale games like Squad, but eventually are just glorified bathroom breaks after the 5th or 8th time. You also are at base sometimes. There's moments where there's like 5 different Little Birds exiting and entering the LZ at your base, to the point where the number of them just feels goofy. But also sometimes you're alone across the map running out of food and you can't call a heli because your team 8 miles out
Negative. All birds are currently dispatched.
is currently already tasking all available helis because there's some PvP fight going on and the respawns at base are backing up the pilots, leaving you out alone in the jungle. It's all weird. Like here, I've got my highly sophisticated program that I'm adding this clip to the video in like the last 10 minutes of editing it. But what if instead of Charlie 3 being an LZ, Charlie 3 was this entire zone, right? And what I got to do as a player was I got to choose within this clearing, you know, except for like obviously these trees here or whatever. Obviously you couldn't click there. But let's say this is like a Helldivers drop where you're choosing where to land the little bird. What if I could choose any certain point within Charlie 3? And once I clicked on Charlie 3, it then gave me a new option of, okay, within this entire zone here, where do you want to land? And I said, I want to land here so that I'm, you know, far away from the town. I can walk up this riverbed. If I wanted to go somewhere else, let's say Delta 3, I could click on the zone of Delta 3 so the pilot knew kind of roughly where to fly, but then they had some sort of procedural landing system maybe that could land me literally anywhere within this big field. It would just have to not be perfectly on rails, of course, but maybe they could make it procedural as long as the heli has like a clear path to come into the LZ, and then it could turn from a on-rails path to a procedural path to land you in a certain spot. I think that would be really cool, instead of landing you in a very 1x1 meter specific location that all teams have a marker on the map of where it's going to be. These markers are shared between teams. Every team has the same markers. So yeah, that's what I think that they should do. You should be able to click within an area where you want to hell dive into the map, not you click on an LZ and everybody knows where that LZ is. Thank you. That's my TED Talk. Also, remember how I said that they invited predominantly Tarkov streamers? What do Tarkov streamers like doing in Tarkov PvP? What do they do only out of the need for better gear to PvP? They do tasks. Tarkov players have done the same tasks for over 13-something wipes now, dealing with a system that goes from teaching you different ways to play the game to absolutely narrowing your playstyle to play the game in the most mind-shatteringly stupid methods because you want AP ammunition for your sniper rifle. And that's not even my main point with tasks. Most of them are fetch item quests, plant marker quests, but the quests are in a linear order, the same for every person. Your friend is level 10, you're level 20, let's say. You have done many more tasks than he's done, but now you both get on and you want to progress your characters. You want to do some grinding, right? Two options. You help your buddy with his tasks, where you'll be rewarded absolutely 0 for your assistance, or you do your tasks instead of his, where he will be rewarded with absolutely nothing for assisting you. Or, literally the most efficient way to progress, you play separately. So when I hear that there's an individual task system ripped straight out of Escape from Tarkov and placed into this big team battle tactical shooter game, I get worried because every single part of the Tarkov task system goes against assisting and working with your team. Even if you try to line up your tasks and progression with your friends with perfectly in tune schedules, you'll hit tasks like kill bad guys in this town. But you both get the task at the same time, and you killing a bad guy takes away from your friend killing a bad guy, and now you have this weird gameplay element where you're actively hindering each other once again by being on the same quest.
I like the gun range, yeah, where I literally still haven't gotten all the kills.
I don't have a single kill for the bunker, that place, or anywhere.
I have 2 for Bun Pound, that's it.
Progression.
Yep. Would you say it's more effective if you went here solo, because then you'd get more kills? Yes, no.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So, a team game where progressing is best done without your team. I don't know if it's just me, but the game itself should have an interesting enough set of objectives, world events, and the world itself that it doesn't need individual tasks to make it fun to explore and allow you the ability to progress. Here you get into the server and you might as well not even have a team. Some dude's up there to the north, why? I don't know. Task, probably. I'm down here, why? I'm doing a task. He's there, why? He's doing a task. He got bored, so he's running to the enemy base for PvP. There's no team radio implemented yet, no team events yet, just towns filled with AI that spawn sometimes on top of you. But we do have our individual 150 tasks to do to upgrade our reputation with traders. Oh man, it's literally straight out of Tarkov. I mean, hey, I'm perfectly fine if this game wants to be a competitor to Tarkov, right? A different type of game, because we need more than one Tarkov and one Hunt Showdown. Arguably the best of the bunch in my opinion, but let's just keep that for another video. What's even the point of having a team when working with them will literally hinder your rate of progression? I understand that in the future there will be more features and game content and stuff like this will probably be ironed out, right? But I understand this is early, right? Thinking about the choices that have been made to get to this point though, it's a little alarming. There's just a list of very odd choices that have been made to get to this point where when I heard about the basic concept of the game, I had questions and concerns, and those concerns were validated by the actual game. Just like I said in my last overview video, this game is effectively Arma 3 Wasteland. 3 teams fighting for control over a big map. They do missions and tasks to gain access to better weapons and gear. It's Wasteland. But you know what Wasteland didn't have? It didn't have tasks. It had missions. And yes, it didn't have a story either, but you could do these all with friends. Destroy an AI convoy, boom, money's everywhere for everyone. Collect the loot at the bottom of the ocean after killing some scuba guys, you share the loot after. You can even just play Battlefield Conquest style. You'd walk into a town and watch the bar go from red to blue, and then your team owned that town, and it was like a gang war between the factions, and you got more money per minute because taxes are fun. This is Arma 3 Wasteland, where all the reasons to play with your team are turned off. And, oh, remember that last episode where I mentioned that people are going to run back to their bodies after respawning? Yeah, that's still a thing. You're going to do that. You'll do that. You know, Tarkov actually fixed this in 2 different ways because, well, when you die, you're dead. You can't run back to your body if you're stuck playing who reaches room temperature first. And you can fit your buddy's stuff usually in your inventory to bring it back to him the next raid. And if you don't have the space, your dead buddy probably insured his gear, so toss it in a bush and he'll get it back tomorrow as long as no one else picks it up. In this game, you can't fit your buddy's stuff in your gear and fly back to base. 2 people can't even fit it. 3 probably can't either. The backpacks are just way too small. Let's say you're playing DayZ. You die and respawn in the same server, and the kicker is you'd probably have to jog miles back to your death location if you want any chance of getting your gear back, which could be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour depending on where you died. Imagine if you could re-kit on the shore of Chernarus and then fly back to the location where you died within at least 500 meters. There's a solid chance that if you kill someone in Gray Zone Warfare and you have to carefully clear the area for other possible bad guys before you loot them, they can re-kit at base, catch a ride to a nearby LZ, and get back to you before your helicopter even arrives to bring you back to base. It's a system that I predicted, and it's a system that is broken. It made firefights with players last hours, and it wasn't a good few hours because most of it surrounded the gamey LZ system where you can predict to the square meter where an enemy heli will land, meaning you can set up an ambush at any time with ease on any players coming into the area. Another problem was identifying friend or foe, because all the factions are the exact same. I mean, other than your location on the map and the lore behind the, like, choose your faction menu, the factions in this version had 0 difference. Even the starter town is just mirrored and rotated, but it's the same town 3 different times. I heard that this was for balancing the starter tasks between all 3 factions. I just found this really weird. It's a band-aid fix for 3 different factions being forced to do the same linear quest line. It's just odd to have cloned towns on the map. I mean, if anything's anomalous in this game, like the game is hinting towards having, anomalous things going on, I hate to say that it breaks immersion, but I think the starter town is the biggest anomalous thing. It being a mirror image of 3 different towns around the map to the details of backyards. It's just odd. Identifying friend or foe was impossible without constantly having to have the map element covering half your screen. I've suggested dynamic uniforms, faction-based camouflage patterns, gear that changes color schemes depending on whose faction it belongs to, even light helmet tape or small armbands or something, anything to allow us to figure out who's who within a moment's notice, and we have yet to see any of it in this version. Dare I say, if I have a compass in my vision and a stamina bar and a stance bar at the top left, we could have maybe, dare I say, a very small identifier UI like a name or maybe an icon above friendlies at less than 15 feet. I mean, we have this in the hardest core military simulation games where UI is naturally a sin among the community, but there, even most players are okay with it because in real life, you'd be able to identify who's who, especially at close range. The reality is you just have extreme awareness of friendlies in real life that you can't get out of stereo headphones and a 70-degree field of view on a 1080p monitor. I think maybe light UI for IFF, especially at close range, in situations where enemies can dress in the same exact clothing as you, would be okay here. I don't think that that's crazy to say. Combat wasn't great. Not only did I have to commonly shoot AI in the head 3 times before they finally fell over, but hitting limbs and torso, even with hollow points, felt like I had a BB gun.
Bullets.
I hit him once in the face, twice in the face. Yet when an AI hit me, I felt much more mortal. This was apparently due to a glitch, but again, this is the build they released to us. The game apparently has a compartmentalized hitbox system with vital organ simulation, bullet cavities, terminal ballistics calculations, but none of that was observable when I rammed a 223 sized hole in a bad guy's head and he didn't flop. The sound system for human movement is extremely underdone, to the point it was heavily affecting any fight we were in. You could only hear someone maybe 10 feet away, and it wasn't really great at giving information. Sometimes I did notice sound bouncing through rooms and open doors like in Rainbow Six Siege, so there is some sort of pretty cool sound direction culling system, at least indoors, going on. If you've never been through a thick forest or jungle trying to hide from someone, sounds go pretty far. You can hear people from far away outside. My buddy and I agree that you should be able to hear someone rushing through the forest, slapping against brush and branches along the way from 50 meters. Someone walking while hitting brush, maybe 25, and someone sneaking and avoiding brush, maybe 5. In this game, you just couldn't hear anything. I just have yet to experience good sound design past Hunt Showdown Stick Crack from 2017. Jungle Warfare is one of my favorite genres of historical books, of games. If done right, it is easily the most dynamic, tactical, close quarters hell you can imagine outdoors. But to make it like that, you have to make the jungle the jungle. Sound should travel far, echoing with reverb off the dense environment. You should have plenty of "did I hear something" moments without knowing the exact sound of the single audio file that the game uses for all footsteps. I'm looking at you, Tarkov. Sticks cracking, dry leaves shuffling, boots sloshing through mud. You should be mistaking natural sounds in the environment for footsteps, and you should be mistaking footsteps for the environment. It's a jungle game. Voices should carry. You should have an Arma-3 TFAR style option to adjust your VoIP range to a whisper or a yell. Voices should reverb based on their environment. Gunshot range still needs to be greatly increased to the point of being so far from the gunshot that you can question if you even heard it. Suppressed rifles still have a weird supersonic crack that sounds louder than the report of an unsuppressed gun at range. Not even when they're shooting at you. I mean, I've heard this in real life. It is broken in game right now. You got the visuals down. Now do the other half. I've been going over my gripes with the game because, well, it's early. It's not even available to the public yet, and I seriously think it could be one of the coolest games to come out of nowhere this year. I had moments and snippets of gameplay where we'd meet up with another squad from a faction, giving them some water as they'd ran out, or hearing enemy factions blazing through a town, knowing that we had a brand new full set of options to fully avoid that encounter or wait until that enemy player left, which was entirely unique when compared to most extraction shooters. It truly feels like the freedom of DayZ meets Ghost Recon, like Arma 3's scale meets Tarkov, and that's, in a good way, just a complex one. By taking inspiration and mixing features from different games, Gray Zone Warfare developers are picking up the issues with gameplay that games like DayZ have, but they're also picking up on the issues of games like Tarkov. Combining the two creates new issues that no developer has ever tackled before. The chemistry equation here is solvable, but nobody's done it like this. So in my 20 to 30 hours of play, did I have fun? Absolutely yes. I think this is easily the most exciting game I've had to try out early in the last few years of tactical shooters. The developers are transparent, they're showcasing their experimental idea early, and although it's far from perfect, filled with easily exploitable features and a current gameplay loop that I question greatly, it still is the most promising shooter to be showcased to us in a while. It just needs more time in the oven before I can say that it's a well-designed game. It's a fantastic idea from a promising team, but it's a new formula that needs careful construction to end up in my Steam library. The problems I encountered with the game could be placeholder, or they could be set in stone, but I have yet to know. Until we see more, I'll be living out my Jungle Warfare dreams in 2003's Viet Cong, and for when the enhanced versions of this game arrives, I'll be playing it. So make sure to subscribe to make it easier to catch new info about Gray Zone Warfare, and I'll see you in the jungle.